Hello, everyone, and welcome to YCQ Answered. That's Your Children's Questions Answered. I'm your host, Yossi Zimmerlover, the Director of Communications at the Yeshiva of Central Queens, and I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. On this new podcast, we'll be talking to different members of the YCQ family about the challenges and opportunities of raising Jewish children in the 21st century. Welcome to the first episode, where we have two superstar educators sitting here with me today. We have Dr. Elana Dumont, the Director of Psychological Services at YCQ, and Rabbi Knapp, the Junior High Principal. Great to have you guys here today.
Great, thank you, Yossi. Great to be here.
Very happy to be here.
Today we're going to be talking about responsible technology use. That's very broad, pretty open-minded. Let's see where this takes us. Are we going to be talking about dishwashers? I don't know. Let's see. But the other week we had Moshe Cohen, a awesome social worker and mental health professional, come to speak to students about different issues related to the internet and peer pressure. And so first I wanted to do a brief recap from the two of you. Just how did that go? What did he talk about? And then let's use that as a springboard to talk about some other issues. So I guess Rabbi Knapp.
Okay, great. Thank you, Yossi. It's really exciting to initiate this project. I hope the community enjoys, and we'll see where it takes us. Moshe was great. I've seen a lot of presentations like this, and one of the things I loved about Moshe's deep dive into technology with the kids was he got the conversation beyond technology, because it's really not a conversation about technology. It's sort of the personality, the character traits that we want to hone for our children to hone, those qualities we want them to develop. And he was trying to get, I think, a little bit deeper than beyond the technology into understanding why we make the decisions we make, what's driving those decisions, our friendships, and how we can really cultivate the personalities and the midot, the character traits that we want our kids to listen to. And the kids were totally riveted by him. They were listening to his mashals, his stories, and he could have gone on for hours and hours. So I hope the kids came home with a lot of good stories and information for you, the parents, to enjoy. And it just creates a conversation about responsible technology usage.
I agree with what Rabbi Knapp is saying. This is our second year having Moshe come and speak to our 5th through 8th graders. And again, just piggybacking on what Rabbi Knapp said, it's nice because it does go beyond just the actual logistics of phone use and technology and social media and all the apps, but it's about teaching kids how the decisions that they make are really fueled by maybe the way they're feeling about themselves, towards others, and how some of their actions might make other students feel. And as a psychologist, obviously, that's what we try to help them with in all aspects of their lives.
Yeah, no, totally. Obviously very important to talk about. And for better and worse, our phones are also such a critical part of our lives nowadays that it really is intertwined, and you can't really separate the two, and obviously touches upon so many different issues. And I think one of the things he discussed, and like we mentioned here briefly, there are those basic important things: internet safety, don't give out your bank account to a stranger, don't talk to people you don't know, don't go on anything illegal or inappropriate. But I think beyond that, assuming we're not doing any of those things, you could tell your children not to do that. It should be pretty self-explanatory. Beyond that, and it's going to happen probably every year, gets younger and younger. Mommy, daddy, I want a phone. Everyone else in my class has a phone. When can I get a phone? So how do we go about talking to them about that? Why yes, why no? And if yes, it's probably going to happen at a certain age. How do we do that safely and responsibly?
It's a great question. And I think the question of when to give a child a cell phone, I think I like to lead with it. The longer you can wait, the better you are, for so many reasons. The development of the mind and the ability to develop certain healthy habits of moderation, avoiding the addictive pieces of the cell phone, are so hard for younger children who don't have that ability at that age necessarily to draw proper limits. And again, like anything, we're hoping to develop children who have a sense of moderation and appropriateness. But I like to give the kids a mashal, a little bit of an example here. So I asked the kids in my junior high school, how many of you have a driver's license? How many of you drive a car? Of course, none of them do, because society has said, and it's research based, that only at a certain age, when the mind is developed, the brain is developed, 16, 17, 18, is it really appropriate to have a driver's license. We would never let a child drive a car. It's too dangerous. They wouldn't know how to use the apparatus and the tool. So too, we have to ask that same question about a cell phone. A cell phone is fine by itself; it's not the issue, but it gives you so much access to things that could be so dangerous beyond one's imagination. Why would we give it out to a child and expose them to that danger without, going through that process? Training the child, maybe a slow rollout. You can have certain apps only initially, and then maybe with someone else by one side. When it comes to driving, there are very, very strict rules about what hours a child can drive it when a child's just getting a license for the first time, how many passengers can be in the car with the driver, because we know there's a tendency among teenagers when they're with groups of kids to make decisions that are far less than the most healthy ones. So I think we should take the same approach to cell phones, and the longer we can wait, the better.
Mm-hmm. I love that analogy, that mashal, and I think it's also worth pointing out that eventually, teenagers do get a driver's license and become adults with a car and a driver's license, but I drive to work every day. There are plenty of dangerous adults out there on the road, and I think we also need to make sure as adults that we're using our own phones responsibly and not hurting ourselves or hurting other people.
Yeah, I think, I totally, I don't think we're going to disagree that much, Rabbi Knapp. But I just want to add in a couple of points. A lot of times parents will ask me too, what is like this magic age that my child gets a phone or gets access to social media? And I don't really see it that way necessarily. I agree, the longer, the better, 100%. And another thing that I will often ask parents is to think about how their child manages social relationships offline. So face to face, in person, in school, on a play date, in the house. What are their conflict resolution skills like? Because however they are, it is going to be magnified and way more impulsive once they have access to a device. And so, while I agree with the later the better, I do want to validate that there is a risk of, your child becoming socially isolated if everyone gets a phone and your family rule is wait until 13 or whatever it is, wait until 8. There's that slogan we can talk about later. But while I agree with maintaining your family boundaries and rules, I also think that there is, a need to balance what the repercussions would be for a child who is maybe the only one without a certain app. So these are just points I just want to put out there. And then, if the decision is made that now is the time, we're giving you the phone, we're giving you access, there should be an understanding that parents have full access to monitor anything that their kids are doing. Not because we don't trust them, but I say this to kids and I say this to parents that, the frontal lobe of the brain is really not fully developed until really you're like a young adult. And that's really the area that we use to make decisions and use our judgment. And we have to expect mistakes, like you just said, Yossi. I think that, when even adults are going to make mistakes, we get into the car accident. And if we go into it with no room for error here, then we're setting them up for failure. So if they know that we're monitoring because our job is to keep them safe as the adults in their life, then I think it takes on a different, framework of being able to partner with them on helping them make good decisions when it comes to the phones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really great point. And I think also we've been talking more in the junior high sphere, understandably, with Rabbi Knapp, but also Dr. Dumont. I think before cell phones, we see it, it's really crazy. Kids less than a year old are already playing with iPads and different things. So I think let's talk about briefly some screen time for even little kids, and there isn't necessarily that peer pressure to be on Instagram or TikTok for a 4-year-old, but they're already being pulled away by the iPad. So how do we deal with that?
I guess I'm probably not the best person to ask because I have little kids with access to their tablets.
No judgment.
Again, like we are going to probably continue to say, there are a lot of benefits to these devices that have been brought into our lives. As a parent with really young kids, it is on my mind a lot, and that's not to say that my kids don't have access. They 100% do. I do like to think about it more in the way of when I need it for myself, that's a good time to allow for it. So meaning if I have a lot of things I need to do around the house, then I will let my kindergartner be on her tablet because I can't really attend to her in the way that I would like to. So really as a tool for myself more than anything else. I think there are recommendations from the APA, the American Pediatric Association, of actual ages of when young kids really should be exposed to screens. I don't know them offhand, but probably easily accessible
We can
to
link
find.
to that
Yeah.
in the show notes. I think that's what they call them.
But yeah, a lot of mixed feelings, I think, about giving it to them at such a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think also while we're talking about, mixed feelings, conflict, not conflicting emotions, I think there is what to say, obviously, about the benefits of technology, cell phone, social media, like anything else in the world. It's a tool, and I think there are some definite positives out there. Anything that speaks to you as a parent specifically, or just in general,
No, it's true. It's so powerful. The idea of social media is using media to connect other people is tremendously powerful. Even during COVID, I remember when my kids, I was running a school in New Jersey, and I had 5 kids going on devices to try to get on their classes, and everyone completely isolated. And one of my sons was still playing Fortnite. And as much as I hated that particular game, you know what? It kept him connected to his friends. He had a social outlet, which was so healthy for him. While we were all suffering with this terrible isolationism, he was really connecting with his friends. So there's tremendous opportunities. And like anything, it's living it with moderation and balance and using it for the good. I like to think from a Jewish perspective that we use our social media in a positive way to spread Torah. We use apps to learn Torah and to spread Torah. Even recently I had a student who I was, this year, maybe we'll talk a little later about it, but we have put cell phones on hold during the school day, so students don't have access to cell phones. And one day I'm on a WhatsApp chat, I'm getting notification of a student posting Tehillim, Parakim of Tehillim for Israel on a chat that we're on. How's he doing it? It's during the school day. And I looked at my records. Oh, he's absent today. So the child's home, sick, not in school. And what's he connecting with? He's connecting with his other friends about how to help Tehillim for Eretz Israel.
I love that.
So it's all how you use it.
Yeah, I think most of us would go back to thinking about the March 2020, right? And it being, thank God for technology, right? Like if this happened many years ago, we would have had no way for our kids to stay connected and be, even just speaking to their teachers. My 4-year-old was on Zoom with her class. I'll never forget it. We were able to call my 90-year-old grandmother on FaceTime every single night. And so I think, for reasons like that, it's a great thing. Staying connected, getting information, making sure it's accurate information, but getting information. I think when used productively, it can be helpful. You're asking for like the positives, but I do just want to point out another thing to keep in mind in order to teach our kids in having realistic expectations when it comes to social media. And that is that it really can sometimes be such a highlight reel of somebody's life, and create really unrealistic expectations and assumptions about what our lives should look like, what other people's lives look like. And I think that really is the danger of giving access too young or just not in the right emotional mindset yet for it, where, you want them to experience life and failures and not make assumptions that somebody's life looks perfect just based on a photo that is posted.
That is a great point. And, this is a comical representation of that. But if you looked at my social media and my wife's social media, we have a 6-month-old. You would think she never cries. She's always smiley, happy, And obviously, as kids get older and more developed and adults, oh my gosh, wow, these people are always happy and always going on vacation and everything in their life is perfect. And obviously that's not the case, but it's an important point to when we're scrolling and reflect on that. I think that is such an important thing to realize.
Yeah.
That, and it's natural. It doesn't mean, and people, I don't know, maybe we could start something to post your failure on social media once a day.
Right. This is how bad my day was.
Right. Right. No, not for, but it'll be fun. Yeah. So Rabbi Knapp, you mentioned briefly about how at school now we have policy every day. Kids come to school in the junior high. They drop their phones off by the office and they don't have them until the end of the day. So what is that like?
What is that like? And also, I'm not the question asker, but
Please,
how
ask
was that
away.
received when it was rolled out?
So the truth is, I think it's been really, really fantastic. Really from all sides, teachers, of course, love the idea, and parents as well. But even the students, there was initial shock, I think, at first that really, we're not doing this, But over time, I think the students understood that this was for their best, in their best interest, that the students themselves, at the end of the day, they crave and they thirst for structure. They need to know that there are rules, and those rules are to help create a calm, safe environment for them to thrive and to learn. And I think what we're seeing is that the students are, during mealtime, they're sitting, they're talking to each other, they're not looking down. We try to have no devices during meals, during breakfast, after davening, during lunch. There's no cell phones. Kids are able to manage their days, and if they need to make a phone call, they need to reach the parents. We of course come to the office at the right time and make a phone call. But I'm a big believer that schools really, one of the primary goals of school is to help foster healthy social children that come to school, learn how to make friends. They learn how to navigate difficult situations, even when things get challenging. After all, we're talking about a junior high school. There's the emotions are all over the place. Kids are learning how to figure out relationships, good times and bad times, and learn how to navigate them when they don't go well. And that's done so much easier when it's in face-to-face communication. So I think it's been a total home run, and I can't be more happy about how the kids have adjusted to all these changes. So as far as I see it, we're in a good place.
I love watching the kids come in and drop it in that little pocket holder that is in Mrs. Lowenger's office. I think it was an amazing move on the school's part, and I know that implementing policies like this is always really hard because there's usually backlash. I don't know. I'm not hearing that there was so much of that, but I think even as parents, if you think about it, I always think the school system, you can parallel to the home, and teachers and parents are so similar. And when we want to implement a major boundary shift, it could be scary. And I think that we're always scared of upsetting our kids and making them angry or, upset with us. But I think this is something that we actually do to keep them safe. And if that's our goal, then them being upset about it is okay because we're doing our job.
For sure. And I think now the next natural follow-up question to this topic is now it's 4:30, kids go home. Now they have their phones back. What can I do as a parent to encourage them to try to put that phone away for, the rest of the evening? What can I do as a parent to encourage kids to put their phones down when they get home, to have a family meal together and actually talk about your day and, just live life beyond the screen?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question probably for all of us parents, right? But again, I think the way that we define our job as parents plays into this a lot, because if our job is to, a lot of times parents will say I just want my kid to be happy. And I don't think that's really what our job is as parents. I think it's really to make decisions that we think are good for our kids and healthy for our kids. And that decision might be a family rule that you walk in the door and your phone goes in a bucket until 6 o'clock at night. And then we give access. But between 4:30 and 6, it's homework, it's dinner, it's being with the family or whatever your home looks like that evening. And being prepared for pushback, because our kids' job is to push boundaries. That really is the developmental stage that most of our children are in, and they're doing it probably really well. But our job is to maintain the boundaries. And so if in your family that looks like you wanting them to keep their phones out of sight for the first hour of being in the home, then you go for it. I think if you want something to change, then it has to be something drastic implemented.
Sure. And I just want to say, I think it also, parents' jobs ultimately maybe to keep their kids happy. I don't think this contradicts that. I think it's just, the long-term shifting. My mom always used to say, I'm telling you to go to bed because I love you. If I didn't care about you, I wouldn't care if you're healthy and happy. And I think that's also, if we frame it as, I'm doing this because I care about you. And in the ultimate, the long-term, this is better for your physical, mental, everything.
Agree.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think it's really about giving a certain power back to the parents. That as parents, we are in the position to, create the norms for our family. And as Jewish parents, I think we live within a whole lifestyle that is all about the actions and what we do, and with the hope that the mitzvot and the activities we're involved in really help us create certain mindsets and beliefs and thoughts. So if it's important to us to have family time, then we have to, sort of set the tone, and we're going to designate times when there's no cell phone times or no cell phone places, whether it be the dining room. If we're able to put together, some semblance of evening meals and rituals, so to speak, so we're spending time together, we're having face-to-face conversations, but it's all really hard because it really requires modeling. And not just do as I say, but do as I do, which is really hard. It's really hard in a school setting for us as educators and teachers to set the tone for kids. And it's really hard in the schools as well. But at the end of the day, I think that's what we signed up to do when we brought children into this world. And God blessed us, thank God, with our families to in a confusing and confounding world we live in today, being able to raise them with the right qualities. So it's easier said than done, but I think parents should just have that sense of power, in sense of priority, that this is something that we need to do individually and within our own homes. And then I think as a society, as a community, as the YCQ community, what can we do to help create a mindset and a norms for our community? Like, for example, in the YCQ community, are we able to say, even this diverse community, hey, we want to hold back the deliver of cell phones to the children until, I don't know, 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade, and give parents the power to say, no, you're not the only one who doesn't have a cell phone, because we as the parent body, together with the school, maybe we can put together a committee together that's willing to say, let's create some norms around cell phone use, or around bedtime. Where does that cell phone go during bedtime? That's a big issue. Or at what time does it go off? Because one of the things I know, and I'm super passionate about, is that the cell phone needs to be charged overnight in a public place, not in a child's bedroom. Because if you think the child's going to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and the cell phone is by the bed, it's dinging and pinging and ringing all night long, and there's no real sleep going on there. And that's an important issue to address as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add on and go back to the idea of the modeling, because I really don't think we can underestimate how much our behavior as the adults impacts our kids. And I bet if we asked any of our, well, maybe not Yossi's because he has a 6-month-old, but I know for sure, I'll speak for myself, my kids would absolutely say that their mom, me, is on their phone way too much. And I can readily admit that, and I will admit it to them too. And so I think that when we're trying to create these new healthy home habits, I think that we need to almost join with them against the problem of the devices. And I will often say to my kids when they're talking to me while I'm on my phone, I say, please stop talking, because I want to fully pay attention to you. And I know that I can't do that while I'm responding to an email or a text. And so they know that. And for better or worse, I do have my phone out, but I do try to have them wait. And, with that being said, to be able to say to our kids, I'm working on this too, I think can really be very powerful for them to see that we're not perfect either.
And for the record, if my daughter could talk, I think she would tell me the same. That's a really important point. This is something we're all struggling with as adults too. If anything, we've had our phones for longer and we're more addicted to the pings, and it's really, it's hard. It's not easy. And Moshe Cohn the other week, used a great expression. He called our phones digital pacifiers. Dr. Dumont, what does that mean? How does that speak to you?
Okay, so I loved it also. And I think what he means by that, like just when we think about a kid and just like giving them that pacifier because they're like whining or, distressed or tired or whatever it is, whatever the reason is, what all right, my kids weren't pacifier kids, so it's a little hard for me to comment on the pacifiers. But, you know, I do sometimes, and no judgment against pacifiers, really. Like, my kids spit them out. I wish they would have taken them. But I think the idea is, like, let's use this to calm them down, right? Like, let's relax them this way, or distract them, or, you know, and sometimes it's like, but let's actually let us feel whatever it is that we're feeling. So the baby's tired, so they're crying, or the baby's hungry, so they're crying, or, you know, whatever, they're trying to communicate something to us. And so I think that the pacifier is a soothing technique, and sometimes used really, really, you know, productively and helpfully. But I think sometimes if we're going to be pulling out the phones or the devices just as a soothing technique, then we likely need some better coping skills to deal with some of our emotions.
Definitely.
Agreed. I totally agreed. And I think, you know, the notion of kids just pulling out their cell phone when they have nothing else to do as a default. And it's in my pocket, I'm just going to pull it out as a default is really a dangerous habit, because it really deprives them from the opportunities to just breathe, relax, sometimes deal with an emotion that they haven't really dealt with yet, whether it's a high, it's a happy, it's a laugh, or even it's a more heavy emotion of just, you know, needing to be sad for a moment. That's okay, or cry. You know, I'll give you a mushal. In the Torah, we talk about white fire and black fire. The black fire is sort of like the power of the letters of the Torah, that which is communicated by the strict letter and the words. But those letters and words have to be separated completely by the spaces in between those letters and those words. It's what we call the white fire, that space in between. And it gives us sort of the sense of both are important, like the times when we're learning and we're innovating and doing new things, and the time in between when we're just taking it in, we're taking stock and we're breathing and we're just taking some downtime. And I think that's what kids need, and we all need as adults. We need time to just take stock and breathe, relax a little bit. And when you're just by default reaching for your phone, you're not really giving yourself that opportunity to recharge and to reset. So it's dangerous. It's a dangerous concept, I think.
For sure. I think that's a great point. And I don't know how to mention this without sounding pretentious, but I once listened to a TED Talk. I actually did listen to a great TED Talk about how no one's bored these days. And we, myself included, I'm not here to preach at all. This probably affects me stronger than a lot of people listening, if not everybody. We all, as soon as we have 5 seconds or a minute to let me just pull out my phone, let me check my email, let me do this. And no one, if we stop for a minute and like Rabbi Knapp and Dr. Dumont saying, let's just breathe and actually try to self-reflect. And I'm not talking about a deep 5-day meditation retreat in a cave. I'm talking about literally 30 seconds to think, and how am I feeling? And, let me be bored even for 1 minute. Let me think about what I'm doing and come up. The best ideas people come up with are when they're just thinking, and we don't stop and think enough.
I say thank God for Shabbos, right?
Exactly.
Because on Shabbos we have when you put down the device and you're able, and as kids you make up funny, silly games, because that's what you do. You enjoy your time together, get creative, get fun, and appreciate each other's presence. It's like a special time.
Thank God for Shabbos. Baruch Hashem, it's Shabbos. We had that playing on a loop.
Yeah. You're going to start singing.
Is there anything that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask? Anything you want to share? Some final closing thoughts? Chastise the community? Anything? You could say no, and then we'll cut this.
I'm a little on the spot, but I just want to, if it didn't come through enough, I just want to say one last time, don't be afraid for your kids to be angry at you for the decisions that you make.
It's power to the
that.
parents.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to be a parent.
Yeah.
Any book, movie, podcast, people recommendations, how to deal with this, more advice, other resources?
This is, most people might know about this one, but I know there's Common Sense Media, the website, the app, they have a lot of information on this topic, a lot of standards and just the rules and regulations. So just a really good resource. And then most people know that as myself as a psychologist, the person that I was trained with, Dr. Becky Kennedy, always has something good to say on all things parenting. So she's my go-to.
I'm a big Adam Grant and Angela Duckworth fan. They have great podcasts and emails and lists you can get. Character Lab. So that's a lot of good parenting stuff. That's all this comes down to, is if we could raise the conversation about what does it mean to be a good parent, because at the end of the day, the cell phone is just a tool and has great potential. And I love when our kids today see that, that our Torah teaching and learning leads in technology. Our Rebbe's and Marot use so many fun apps and games to help the kids learn Torah and to connect through Torah, because that's the language of our kids. But with everything, just with moderation. So whatever we can teach them to go for that, strive for that shvil hazahav, that golden path of moderation, will serve them well for life.
If I may say so myself, I think this has been an awesome conversation. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask a couple of fun questions to end off with. Dr. Dumont, what's something interesting or fun that you have on your desk or in your office?
Okay, so it's good that I'm one of the first episodes on this podcast, because I'll probably be the most boring. But if you know,
don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short.
Well, if you
We're
know,
having a good time.
if you know, we're having a great time. If you know my role at YCQ, you know my office is really far from the action, and I'm actually rarely in there. So you'd probably find like a Splenda in my drawer, but like there's not much else going on in there, if I'm being honest. Like I'm usually sitting in Rabbi Landsman's office, and there's a lot more happening. Like right now, lots of mishloach manot on the table.
For now, until they're eaten. My office has a lot of like hockey stuff, I think, on it, whether it be like Pittsburgh Penguin paraphernalia or my kids. Or
I think I just am obligated to boo as a Ranger fan.
Well, we are united by our YCQ fandom, so I have a lot of good YCQ gear and swag already. We're super proud of our kids in pursuing their passions. So I have a lot of I think paraphernalia and shtick about my kids' passions and my school's passion. So I like that.
All right, let's go wild.
Yossi, what's on your desk?
What's on my desk?
Are we allowed to ask?
You can ask me. Plead the fifth now. I actually had fun the other day. I wallpapered one of the walls with all the different flyers I made over the year.
Cool.
And
So did I, by the way.
I think I got that idea from you. Yeah. Well, I make the flyers. It's
Israel
everyone
stuff
else's
we have.
events, and it's cool to see everything come together.
That's
and
awesome.
so many different amazing things going on here at YCQ.
There's a lot going on here at YCQ. We have a lot to be proud of. We really do.
And stay tuned for more episodes where we
Amen.
talk to other people, other issues, other exciting things happening. And
Correct.
just to close, what's your favorite lunch at YCQ?
Rabbi Knapp, you go
Do you
first
ever
on this one.
No. Do you ever go downstairs?
You know, it's a great muscle also, because when they put that little poke bowl together, it was basically like the same lunch, but they just shaped it
noticed
and
that.
redressed it into that plastic bowl, and kids waited for half an hour online for that. They loved it.
It's all about that plastic bowl.
It's the presentation,
All
totally.
right. I
Yeah.
think we should hire Yaakov as a new director of communication.
He's a master.
I will say, again, boring, but tuna fish day is a favorite of mine. And I'm always happy when I see a salad down there.
That is true. We got a lot of good colors down there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for spending time with me today. And this is really great. Hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, and thank you.
Amen.
Thank you so much for listening. And a special thank you to Mr. Simcha Sommer for helping produce this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your app of choice so you never miss an episode. We would love to hear from you. Go to ycqweb.com/podcast. If you have any ideas for a topic of discussion, a special guest, or anything else you think we could be doing better, please let us know. Once again, that's ycqweb.com/podcast. Until next time.